Hello, Patrick. Thanks for coming on today and doing this, being one of the first people I ever interview. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Anything you want to say off the bat?
Well, I'm Patrick. I've been age adding for like 7 years now. Um, I'm pretty good, but not native. But yeah, make progress every day.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so let's get into the details about your AJAT journey thus far.
All
So,
right.
how did you first find out about AJAT, and how did you realize that it was a real thing that might actually work?
All right. So it's kind of like a long story, but so like during summer 2009, I stumbled across Tikyo Sam's video on YouTube, which was like how to learn Japanese the real way. And he like mentioned RTK and AJAT in the video, but at the time I didn't really give it much attention, and I just kind of forgot about it because it was just like a passing thing. I wasn't really interested in learning Japanese at the time. I just like stumbled across the video. Then uh, in like October 2010, I was actually kind of interested in Korean, and I was actually using Rosetta Stone for like 3 weeks, but the
To learn
voices
Korean?
were yeah. But the voices were really annoying, so I like quit because I was like, man, these voices are really annoying. So like shortly after, like one night, I was watching this one video on YouTube about this white girl who was like studying abroad in South Korea, and after like the video, something just like clicked, and I was like, why am I even doing Korean? Like, what the heck? And I don't really remember what I was thinking like that clearly, but I guess since I just like quit using Rosetta Stone like for Korean, I was in like kind of like a language learning kind of mood. And I remembered watching like the Tikyo Sam video from like 2009. And so that night I just like I watched it again. And like that time like everything clicked. I was like, yeah, man, that sounds so cool. Like AJAT, that sounds so cool. So then I went to the AJAT website and I read like most of it that night. I stayed up like super late. I just like read most of it in one go. And like
What did the site look like back then?
I mean, it didn't look too different from what it does now. Like the general theme was the same, but like when you went to ajat.com, it just like showed like each post in like chronological order, and it didn't have like the those two buttons. It's like if you're new
Yeah.
or existing, and it didn't have like any like sign up or whatever for like a emailing list or whatever. Like I think he has on it now. It just like when you went to the website, it just went to the like blog with like chronological, like reverse chronological order, like with the updates with his posts. And like at that time, he was posting his like Cantonese notes because I think he was like that was when he was like going um, like full force with Cantonese. But so like I read all like most of Age at that night, and like maybe because I was like 13 and like young
Yeah.
and like impressionable, like
That's
I
so
didn't
young.
have I didn't have any doubts. Yeah, I'm 20 now, almost 21. But so I didn't have like any doubts. Like everything just like I absorbed it all, and I was like, hell yeah, this is perfect. And like the next evening, like that was probably at like 3 a.m. It's like the next day or the same day in the evening, I started RTK, and like the rest is history. But I should also mention, like, up until that point, I didn't really care about Japanese stuff at all, pretty much. Like, besides like Pokemon and Dragon Ball as a kid, I didn't really see like any animes at all, and like I didn't really care about like Japanese music or manga or whatever. So I wasn't really interested in Japanese at all. But it's like I just started Japanese and like totally on a whim. But like after like shortly thereafter, it's like Japanese itself became like the reason to continue like learning Japanese. So yeah, that's like the short like history of how I started AJAT.
Awesome. And so then, what did your what did it kind of look like throughout time? Like, how long did it take you to get through RTK?
Yeah, so I started RTK November 2010, and I finished in early March 2011. So it was like 3.5 months. I was averaging somewhere like around 20 a day.
Cool. That was cool. And so, what was your immersion like?
Oh, I was pretty much like rewatching the same anime like on repeat like for the whole time. It was a pretty long anime series, but that was pretty much it. I was
What was
just listening to
what was the anime series? Because I know you love it.
Yeah, it's Bomberman Jetters. Bomberman Jetters. I totally recommend it.
Awesome, awesome. So then, what? Tell us about what it was like starting sentences, how you did that, eventually how you made it over to monolingual.
All right, so like when I was finishing RTK, I was like rereading AJAT for like the 10,000 sentences thing, and I was like kind of confused because I remember like on a few posts he mentioned like the like Oxford like Japanese English dictionary or whatever, and I don't know, I was kind of confused, but I just picked up Cass recommended it. It's called All About Particles, and it's like this grammar book which just has about like 500 example sentences, and they're all like pretty good like natural Japanese, no textbook stuff. So I started SRSing those, and it goes through like all the particles in Japanese. So like after you did like 500, you have a somewhat solid foundation to like start learning like real Japanese. So that's what I started with, and at the time while I was doing those sentences from All About Particles, I was also like finding my own that I could like understand like mostly, except for like one or two words, and then I would add those as well.
So where were you
And then
getting those sentences from?
oh, like those were coming from like the internet and like anime because I could start like picking things out from anime, and
But
I was
you
like
weren't using subtitles, right? How did you do you just go by
no.
ear?
Yeah, I went by ear, but like I only went with things that I was like really sure about. I didn't like I really tried to avoid like making stuff up that I thought I heard. Like I went with things that I like made sure I knew. I also like played I had some like Japanese video games like RPGs and adventure games like Final Fantasy and Zelda, and those have a lot of text. So I actually used like those RPG like Final Fantasy and Zelda games. I probably got like 2,000 sentences from like those altogether. So that was a lot. That also contributed a lot. But yeah, so I did that, and then so I did that for around like 5 months, and like Japanese to English sentences, and then like in August of that year, 2011, uh, I just like kind of switched to Japanese cold turkey, and it was really difficult at first
Wait,
because
how many bilingual sentences did you have at that point?
at that point it was probably around like 12 or 1,300.
Okay, so that's not that much.
Yeah, so like I mean I started and Japanese like cold turkey. But what I did was I used a dictionary called it's like Sanseido's online dictionary. And unlike like Daijisen or Daijirin from that you can find like on Goo or like Yahoo or like Kodo Bank, they're like really simple definitions. Like usually they're like three or four words, and they just like give you the most like basic like essence of the word, or sometimes they just give you like synonyms. So I used that for like the beginning, like 2 or 3 months, and in retrospect, if you use those like kind of really basic definitions, you might not get the full aspect or like the whole nuance of the word. But at that point, it doesn't really matter because, you can pick up all the nuance and stuff from immersion. So I did that for around 2 or 3 months, and then I was adding like probably like I mean, when I first started Japanese, I was like adding like five a day because it was really tedious, and I was branching like five times for each card, and it was a huge pain, but it got faster. Like I got really good at it really quickly. So after like 2 or 3 months, I was using Yahoo's online dictionary, which uses Daijisen, and I was
Hmm.
using those, and
And
I kind of stopped having trouble with those.
so, like when you were branching, did you make other sentences for the words that you had branched and found, or not, or just were you just winging it pretty much?
At the time, I wasn't making new cards for the words that I branched, but like starting like 6 months after I started Japanese, then I realized I was like wasting like a whole bunch of opportunities to learn new words. So
Okay, so
after that
if you
after
would have
that
went back, you probably would have started doing that
yeah,
earlier, you
like
think?
if I went back, I would have like made cards for all my branches.
Okay,
Um
cool, cool. And also, just
all,
to go back again for a second, so that first book you used, the Introduction to Particles, what was it called?
all about
Yeah, all
particles.
about particles. So that how much grammar did that have? Like, it sounds like that didn't go into you know conjugations of verbs and things like that. So like how much did you, of a grammatical foundation did you have from that?
I mean, in that sense, in terms of the conjugations, I didn't really have much of a foundation because the book basically just does particles. But I mean, I had enough grammar, like a grammatical foundation, because it has all the example sentences and it has the translations. So like you can tell just from like kind of like pattern matching, like what goes where and like what corresponds to what. So I didn't use like any like conjugation
Yeah, so
uh,
you
stuff like that.
you basically just figured it out. You didn't have any, long, like detailed English explanations about what was going on grammatically. It was really kind of
Yeah,
just
not at all. Like I just had example sentence and I had example sentence and then I had the definitions of the words in English and then I had a translation to like test my understanding against. So that was what like all my Japanese to English cards were. Like in the beginning, like a lot of it was winging it. Like I just winged it. But it all ends up all right. As long as you're
yeah.
like immersing. As long as you're immersing and getting all your input, like even if you wing it, like you'll still end up all right.
So you had not really you weren't going after that crystal clear understanding of exactly what each sentence meant. It was more just like you had a general idea or gist, and you went with that for now. And then as time went on, it naturally clarified, like became clearer and clearer exactly what it meant just through seeing
Yeah.
it in different contexts and things like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so then after you were talking about after you had adjusted to being monolingual.
Yeah. So like after like 2 or 3 months of the Sanseido dictionary, I just switched to like regular like Daijisen. And at that point I was only doing like two branches per definition, like max. I mean, yeah, two branches per definition max usually. And I eventually started making cards for those branched definitions as well. And then I just kept doing that for like up until now pretty much. Like I would say after doing it for like a year or a year and a half, like at that point, like my Japanese like really like settled in, and that was around like six to 7,000 cards.
And so how long had you been age adding at that point total?
At that point, it was probably around like 2 to 2.5, like yeah, like 2 years or so.
So that was when you felt like you pretty much could understand everything that was coming up in your immersion without
Yeah,
too much
pretty much.
difficulty.
Yeah, pretty much. So like that also like goes into like a whole nother can of worms, like the being able to understand pretty much everything in your immersion environment. But so yeah, like after like 2.5 years, I really like Japanese like really like became part of me in the sense that like I had like an intuition for it. Like I could tell if things sounded wrong. I could like like even if I made a mistake, like I would know that I made it immediately, and then I'd be able to correct myself. So after like
Just
two to two and a
intuitively,
half
you
years,
mean?
yeah. So like I didn't know like any like grammatical like reasoning or anything like that, but I just knew like when things like felt wrong, or like when things like sounded wrong, if like the wrong word was used. It's like you can just feel if something's
Yeah.
wrong, kind of like in like your native language if you don't really know all the grammar rules.
And so up until this point, about how many cards were you making a day after you had settled in with the monolingual dictionary?
It was around uh like 15 to 25 depending on like how busy I was. Um the summer 2012 is like when I really went I really put the pedal to the metal to the pedal, I guess. And I kind of had a moment because like at that point, summer 2012, I'd been age adding for around 18 months,
Yeah,
and I
that was the big
realized,
number.
yeah, yeah, the big number on age at 18 months. And I realized I was like, man, I'm like, no, my Japanese is nowhere where it should be. Like my Japanese is pretty good, but it's nowhere where it should be, or at least where I thought it should be. So that like feeling of like that feeling of like, I don't know. I'm not gonna say like self-hatred, but it's like disappointment in myself, like boosted me. So like at that point, I was doing like 30 sentences a day, and like it didn't feel tiring at all for me. Like every time I learned a new word, I was like getting closer to the goal. I was like chipping away all my suckage and like becoming better. Um, so yeah, that was that. And then like that was a really like big part of my age adding because like during that summer I added like thousands of cards. So
Dang.
so like in such a short time I like made like a huge like a huge leap. I just like stepped over like the huge puddle of suckage and I got like better so fast. But yeah. So like after that I just kind of I like slowed down a bit because I don't know, I was kind of getting busy with school because at that point I don't know, I was like, I was in like high school by then, like 10th grade. So stuff was getting a little more serious, I guess, than like eighth and ninth grade. So I had a little less time, but I was still doing like averaging like 10 sentences a day at that point.
Nice.
Uh, yeah, and that really continued up until like the beginning of 11th grade. So 11th grade was 2013, and at that point, like Japanese like became such a part of my life, like I was pretty much understanding most of my like immersion environment. It's like all the animes I watched, I could understand like most of them. Like everything I read online, I could understand most of them. So I kind of got lazy, and this is kind of like this is a really long story, but I kind of got lazy, and I kind of like slowed down making cards, and like there would go days like when I wouldn't add any cards at all. Like, but at this point, like for all intents and purposes, you could say I was like fluent, quote unquote, for
Yeah.
like
That's
all intents and purposes. So
This is
I,
3 years in, but pretty around from when you
yeah, this
first
is like
started.
yeah, this is like 3 years in. So like for all intents and purposes, I was like pretty much like fluent. But what I didn't realize was I wasn't like challenging myself anymore because like everything that I was just doing, it's like go like read like random like web pages or whatever, like watch anime, like read like some light novels. It's like I became really good at that. So it's like even if I came across a single word I didn't know, like it didn't affect my understanding of the thing at all. Because it's just one word out of like if it's like one word out of like 100, then you can pretty much tell what that one word means, even if you don't know, even if you haven't learned it from like context. So that's what happened to me. But I didn't realize at the time that I like wasn't like challenging myself because it's like if I were to like try to read like classical literature at that point, like I would have like stumbled so badly. So I wasn't like challenging myself. So that continued for a really long time, like a year, like where I was just lazy, like complacent, I guess that's how you say it. And I was
Complacent.
just yeah, complacent. Uh, so for like that one year, like I didn't really learn that much, like because I just got really lazy. Like that's not to say though, it's like I was still doing Japanese like every day because like my environment and life like revolved around Japanese. I just got lazy to the point where I wasn't actually like actively learning anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a pretty common trap, or a trap that's easy to fall in as an age adder, because you're already way beyond where most people like get stuck, you know. So, but
Yeah.
what kind of woke you up out of this sleep?
Okay, well, I remember I met you. I met you like when I was in the middle of that, like smack dab in the middle of my laziness. But we didn't really talk for a while, and then we started talking like next year in
Yeah,
2015.
just to note
And,
how we met. It's kind of embarrassing now, but
yeah,
there is this
so
website called Japanese Level Up, which actually me and Patrick don't think too highly of. But there is this post that was about letting hardcore Japanese learners meet other learners to so you could not be alone on your journey. And they were like sorted by levels, and I guess we probably both put ourselves at the highest level and met on there. And I had actually seen Patrick's YouTube videos because when I first started AJAT, and I searched on YouTube like AJAT and stuff. Patrick had videos of him around ever since the beginning of his journey around
yeah,
2010 and 11.
when I finished
Just like
RTK.
yeah, these long videos of him just turning on the camera and just like rambling on about what he was doing. And I loved those because it just made AJAT feel so real because I had never, there was the website, but that was all text, I had never seen anyone doing it, and there was kind of that feeling of like, is anyone actually doing this? Is it working? And so unfortunately, like there was trouble with Patrick's YouTube account, and they got deleted, and now they're lost to the world, and there's no way to recover them. But
Yeah.
when I first found Patrick, he was kind of like a little famous person to me because it was like, oh, he's the guy from the YouTube videos. I wonder if I could become his friend. And so it was kind of funny, but yeah. So we were just texting online at first for a while,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, so we were using Line. Uh, and like I realized that Matt was like really good because like Matt knew like so much, like not just Japanese but also like about Japanese. Like it's like a human encyclopedia or something. But because like I mean Matt had a pretty like different approach than I did to AJAT, but and like I remember Matt was like reading like novels way more than me, so like that also like attributed a lot to it, I think. But like I met Matt and I was like, wow, this dude is like really good, like probably better than me. He is better than me, and like I can't, but
and it,
I've been age adding longer too, so it's
yeah, I
like
started a year after Patrick, for the record.
yeah, so he's been age adding less than me and he's better than me. It's like I can't, my pride won't let me it won't allow that, I guess. So I mean, from then on, it's like I've been a lot more active, and it's like I mean, I've had my ups and downs over the time since I met Matt in terms of like my active Japanese learning, but recently, um, my Japanese has been like full force because it's kind of I'm kind of running out of time because next year I'm going to go to the Boston Career Forum and see if I can land a job in Japan from when I graduate because I'm going to be graduating relatively soon from university. And if not that, like if I can't get a job immediately, my plan B is to like do graduate school in Japan. So either way, it's like I want to have like close to native like Japanese as possible by then, and that's like a year or like a year and a half. So as of now, like I'm just it's like my good old days from like 2012. I'm going like full force.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, it's kind of funny because like you mentioned like when we first started talking, I had no idea you felt that way because you didn't show it. You acted really like really chill, and like you didn't really like that you're totally like just chilling and not really worried about that stuff. So it's kind of funny that to hear that you thought of me that way.
I mean, like that's what I thought, like deep down, like in the back of my mind, like when I was just like interacting, I wasn't really thinking about it, but it was like always like a thought in like the far reaches of my mind. It's
Yeah, it's an honor. It's an
like
honor
in the
for
back.
sure.
Yeah.
So uh, let's see. So let's talk about output for a little bit. So when did you first start outputting, and how did that what did that look like for you?
All right. So uh, hopefully the people who listen to this can like learn from my mistakes. But after I was doing sentences for like 9 months or so, this was like December 2011. Yeah, December 2011. I found out about a website called Lang8, and on Lang8 you can post like diary entries and get natives to and you can get natives to check them out, and like they'll like correct your mistakes or whatever. And at the time I was like, hell yeah. So like I just posted a whole bunch of stuff, and it was a really mixed bag because like half my stuff would be like things that I quoted from like anime that I knew were correct, but I just like changed a few words to like make it fit what I was trying to say. And then other times I was like trying to be like unique and like make up my own Japanese. And that was like I look back at it now and it's really cringy to like look at. It's like so bad. I mean, I can tell what I was trying to say, but it was really bad. But what I guess what the saving grace was that I was immersing so much that even if I was like forcing myself to output a little bit, it wasn't really doing much for my Japanese. Because like probably like 6 months after 6 months after that, like my Japanese went from like horrible to like I don't really make that many mistakes anymore. So like over that period of like 6 to 8 months from like when I started posting on LangGate, I didn't post on LangGate that much after like 1 month. I kind of like stopped, and then I wasn't outputting that much anymore. And then all the immersion like fixed up my my wacko Japanese.
So basically, you had a little bit of output. It didn't go that well. Then you pretty much just went full time input, and then after you had this kind of growth spurt through your period of going pretty hardcore, then you came out on the other side, and you pretty much just had this ability to output. You're saying.
Yeah, so it's like my like it wasn't polished then, but I was like making correct Japanese and like correct natural Japanese like most of the time, like 95% of the time at that point. So yeah,
So
so
it was pretty much just like Kat said it was supposed to be. Sounds like right. Like it becomes natural enough once you have enough input and you're understanding enough input, right?
yeah, so I guess the moral of the story for people listening is like just don't bother trying to force output until it can come out by itself because nothing good is going to come out when you try to force it. Because if you just get enough input, it'll happen naturally. That's how it works. So that's the moral of the story. Don't force output.
Awesome, awesome. And then like, what about speaking?
Like to be honest, like even right now, speaking is kind of my weak point because I've never really spoken to a Japanese person that much. Like I went to Japan for like 10 days, like 4 years ago, over 4 years ago, and that was that. But besides that, I haven't really talked to that many Japanese people at all. So like as of now, speaking is like my weakest skill probably, just because I can't like think on the spot. Like my writing is way better than my speaking. I mean, that's natural for everyone, but in my case, it's like amplified just because I can't really think on the spot too well. But I mean, it's not bad, but it's nowhere where I want it to be. So
Yeah. So on that note, let's go a little bit more into detail about your ability and your strengths and weaknesses and how exactly you view your own ability. Because something you realize as you get better, that you know ability in a language is not one thing or even a few things. There's like a million different
yeah.
facets that you can improve at, and they're all partly independent from each other. So how do you think about that?
Well, like I would say, I would say reading is definitely my like best skill, and like listening is. If I were to like rank the four skills, it'd be like reading is the best, listening is second, writing third, and then like speaking fourth. Um, so in like terms of speaking, I mean it's kind of like a mixed bag. It's like my internal monologue, like half the time it is Japanese. So like when I'm just like living my life, like half the time, like I just like say Japanese things. But when it comes to like trying to like explain like let's say like an abstract concept, I really kind of have to think about the words. So in that case, like it's not on par with like my English ability to speak. In like when I try to like do more like complex like abstract concepts or like explain something that's complex. But like in terms of like things you say regularly, like on a regular day, my speaking is fine. My writing though, I mean, I guess since you have time to think about what you're gonna say, like my writing is a lot better. My listening, I mean, I'd say is good. There's still a lot of holes though, especially if I try to listen to like fast comedy or something. Like Beat Takeshi is kind of hard to understand.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
a lot of the words just like they're all like mumbled and they just like go in your ear and come out the other side without you really being able to like process them in my case. So in terms of that, there's still room for improvement in terms of like being able to understand like mumbled Japanese or like really fast Japanese.
Do you
Like
do you think of it in kind of in terms of that like your listening ability as like at a certain level and it's just not high enough so you can't understand that stuff, or if it's more just like you get good at what you train for and you never listened to that kind of stuff that much because you weren't interested in it, so you didn't get practice learning to understand it, and therefore now it's I mean, you still understand most of it, but it's not at 100% because of that.
Yeah, like definitely the latter because like you train for like what you listen to. It's like so your normal immersion, like my normal immersion. It's like anime, like audiobooks, and like podcasts and stuff like that. So like people are speaking like at a like regular pace, but I haven't really watched like I don't really watch like TV that much. So I haven't really seen these many like that many like comedy shows or like variety shows or comedy shows and stuff like that where like that's when like people like really speak in like a certain way like Beat Takeshi. It's like you don't see him on anime but you see him on these comedy shows, so it's like but I haven't really watched those kind of comedy shows, so I think it's just a matter of like what you've been exposed to because like you train. I mean, you become a master of what you're like exposed to, but then you're kind
Yeah,
of bad
totally.
at what you're not, which is the same thing. It's like with reading. It's like when I got lazy, like I could read my visual novels just fine, but like I wasn't like trying to read like classical novels. So like when I eventually like got into classical novels, I was like, oh crap, like I suck at Japanese. But it's like because I hadn't had like that much exposure, so naturally, if you don't have the exposure, you're not going to be very good at it. So it's just a matter of like how much time you put into that thing. It's like if I listen to like Beat Takeshi for like 1,000 hours, after those 1,000 hours, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to understand like pretty much everything that like these comedy people say. It's just a matter of like putting the time in.
Yeah, totally. So then let's go into your actual plan about uh, where you want to improve and how you're going to improve that. So are there aspects that you're focused on? I think because I mean I know you personally that you're working on filling in holes in your reading right now. You're working pretty hard on that.
Yeah, so I've been reading um, a lot more, and like what I do right now is if I ever come across like a word I don't know, or like a word I think I can tell from context, I just learn it anyway because I'm trying to like fill up my reading till like it's perfection. Because like right now, I mean, I might come across like I don't know, maybe like one word every like 4 pages or so, 4 or 5 pages. So I'm kind of like at that level. And in the past, I would just skip over it. I was like, whatever, I don't need to spend the time. But I realized that was a bad idea. So like right now, I'm like making up for lost time. So I'm not dropping any words that I find. That's for reading.
And how would you compare your reading level to your English reading level?
I mean, in terms of like comprehension, like I feel it's like on the same level. It's like almost on the same level as English. In terms of like I read a sentence that I can understand it. But in terms of speed, like I'm way faster at reading English than Japanese, just because I've had like for my whole life I've been reading English, whereas Japanese it's been like a third, and uh, more like a lot less of actually like intensively reading. So I
And so,
mean,
do you think the reading speed is something that's gonna kind of fix itself over time through just
yeah,
reading a lot?
yeah, definitely because like even on like a short term, it's like if I don't read like for example like a few months ago like there was like times where didn't read a single book for like a month. So like when I started reading again, like I was like pretty slow at it. I mean, relatively speaking, like I could still read like a page like a minute and a half, but that's still too slow. But but it's like after reading for like a week, like it instantly picked up back to like where it used to be. So that's on the short term, but I definitely feel in the long term as well. Like it'll all work itself out. Like
Cool.
that's my like that was my pretty much like main philosophy for age at. It's like just have faith in your method, like have faith that it'll work, and the results will show.
Cool, cool. So then what about like with like so with listening? So do you have plans for like in the future when like now you're putting a lot of your effort into reading, but do you think there'll come a time where you'll do the same thing for listening, where you'll seek out the areas of Japanese that you're still weak on and do some target practice?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, in the future, I plan on like watching a lot more like variety shows and comedy shows to the point where I can like not miss a single word. I think that's really important because like a native speaker, they're not going to really miss that many words. So,
Yeah, totally. And so
so like once I get to that, like that's what I want to do. So,
what about speaking? What are your what's what strategies do you have planned for when the time comes where you're gonna put your effort into trying to improve that?
honestly, at the time, I haven't really been putting that much thought into how to become really good at speaking.
Because I mean, the big question that we've kind of talked a lot about uh, is input alone enough, or does there
Oh
come a
yeah,
point where practice does become a component? What are your current thoughts on that?
I think input alone is enough to get you pretty good, but if you want to get really good, like near perfection, then you got to start doing like active practice because like you've been talking about and like we've been talking about for the past while, it's like with pitch accent, it's like we still make like a lot of mistakes with our pitch accent like unknowingly. So in that case, you have to just like deliberately practice kind of
Yeah,
like say like practice saying the words and then eventually like it'll just kind of like become natural.
yeah, totally,
But
totally. I'm pretty much I'm currently thinking the same exact thing. So pitch
yeah,
accent on that kind of note, like would I know that me and you kind of around the same time? Well, because I figured it out and then I told you when I kind of like really realized that pitch accent was a thing and that like that you could look it up in the dictionary and each word has a certain pitch accent and when we speak that's one of the biggest things we give away because I think both me and you like if you think of pronunciation pitch accent and intonation as separate things and pronunciation being just like the your ability to pronounce the individual consonants and vowels we kind of were almost literally perfect just through input
hmm
like when we say individual words we can sound native right and we never
hmm
put conscious effort into that but pitch accent didn't really seem to be that way and I mean I have theories about why that is but I my like I'm think like one of the things I think about now is how early on should people worry about pitch accent? What if you could go back? Would you have paid more attention to that early on?
I mean a lot earlier, but not like in the beginning. I feel like it's best to like put all your effort, I guess, into like just trying to get a foundation of Japanese before you start like oh, okay, maybe I should say I think it's important to have like the correct pronunciation first before you try to fix the intonation because like pronunciation goes first. It's like
Yeah,
if
they
you
build
can't
off each
it
other.
like if you can't say the sounds right, then you know it doesn't matter if you can like have the correct intonation. So uh, I think like once your like pronunciation gets like mostly perfect, then you should like start. So like it varies for people, but I don't know. After like 2 years or so, I think most people like should probably start.
Cool, cool. So then, what are there any other things that you wish you would have done differently? I mean, we talked about the thing on learning words for recursive lookups. But are there any other things that you wish you would have known or would have done differently if you could go back?
Um, I wish I would have known that becoming lazy uh, is, I guess, kind of a common thing, and like I should have put more effort into like realizing it, like in like realizing it while I was experiencing it. That like I can't afford to get lazy because there's still so much more to learn. So if I could like redo one thing, it'd be to like constantly be on the lookout for if I'm becoming lazy.
Cool, cool. I think that's a really good thing to put out there, a really good thing to keep in mind. So
Yeah.
then I know me and you kind of cringe a lot seeing other people trying to do AJAT and not doing it right or making some really basic mistakes. So what are some things that you see noobs doing that they need to fix?
All right. This isn't like the first one isn't really it's not really like a matter of a method. It's more a matter of the mentality. So just from the Discord server that you had,
Yeah.
I noticed like while I was on it, a pretty a trend is like a lot of people like make excuses for why they can't do like X, Y, or Z. And I'm not going to name any names, but there's this one gentleman, and I posted in the chat. I was like, "Are you guys reading every day? Like, you guys should read every day. If you guys read every day, it's like a one-way ticket to being really good, really, really quickly." And
And you
this
meant
guy,
read books, right?
yeah, like books, like
Not
novels.
just web articles
Yeah,
and blogs.
yeah, like no, like light novels are fine. Not regular novels, like classical stuff. Like just read a book. Not, mangas don't count. Uh, so like this guy responded, and he was like, "I thought about reading all day," and then I was like, "What? You just thought about it? You didn't actually do it? You just thought about it?" And then he's like, "Yeah, but I was like busy. I had work, and that's true for everyone. It's like you can't decide all your circumstances. You have people have work and school, but it's like if he has the time to be on the chat room, like talking with us, but he doesn't have time to read. So it's like the mentality. It's like making excuses for yourself. And, with AJAT, it's like you have to be fully responsible for, all the results that you get. So I think the biggest thing that I see like noobs make, like I made these mistakes too in the past, but it's like take full responsibility like for like your results, and like don't make excuses. Um, like don't make excuses for like why you can't do something, because like you're probably wasting time in so many other places in your day. So that's like the number one thing. Just like don't make excuses for like why you can't do something, and then like convince yourself that I can't do Japanese because there are like these factors. So that's like number one. But
Totally.
in terms of a more like methodical thing, like in terms of actual age at, number two would probably be like forcing output. Like in my experience, like forcing output is definitely a bad idea. So like don't try to force output.
Cool,
Uh,
cool.
a huge one is do not start sentences before you finish RTK, because
Yeah, a lot of people try to do this.
okay, because like RTK is like your foundation. It's like you can't build a house like just on the dirt. It's like you need the foundation. So if you start trying to do your sentences before you know all the kanji, like it's not as drastic, but it's like that's like trying to learn like English when you don't know like all the letters of the alphabet.
Yeah,
Because
it's
like
exactly like that.
because kanji is like kanji is used, like it's used a lot in Japanese. So if you start trying to learn sentences and trying to start doing Japanese before you know all the basic like foundational information, then you're just setting yourself up for like it's going to be way more difficult at first of all, and you're kind of setting yourself up for failure because like you're trying to build a house without any foundation. So that's a really bad idea to start sentences before you finish your kanji. And like think about it in the long term. It's like I've been doing like Japanese for like 7 years. You've been doing it for like 6 years. So it's like you can do RTK in like 3 months. So it's like, does it really matter if you get like a 1 month head start, like doing sentences before you finish RTK, when you're only at like let's say 1,300 kanji? Like you're gonna get like 1 month. That's like $5 in your pocket when you want to become a millionaire. It's like not worth it.
Well,
Except
what,
there
what
are also drawbacks too. So there's no reason to do sentences before finish at least RTK.
what would you say to someone who's just like, "Oh, it's so boring though. I just I want to learn real Japanese. I'm tired of this. I don't even know how to read the kanji."
Like pretty much just deal with it, like suck it up and like just finish it. It's like you just power through the kanji. It's like just go through it, and it might suck. You might be bored, but I guess it's also a matter of like how much like they try to make it fun. Like if you convince yourself that it sucks, it sucks. But it's like, let's say you're learning the kanji, it's like then you can like go through Japanese text, and it's like, wow, I know that. Like I know all these symbols, and then you can like try to piece together the meaning. So it's like kanji doesn't have to suck. I mean, it's definitely not like super fun, but it's like you can find ways to make it fun. It's like, like
Yeah,
I
totally.
like what Kat said was like what he said on AJAT. It's like even like if he couldn't like say even if he couldn't do it in Japanese, he would like take his notes like using kanji, like using like the keywords or whatever. So it's like you could do something like that. It's like, there are tons of ways you can like spice up your kanji life. Not to mention like kanji is like a 3 month thing, or like, let's say 6 months. Like if you do it slowly, it's like, but in the long term, it's like you're gonna be doing Japanese hopefully for like, years to come if you don't give up. Like you should be doing it for years to come. So it's like, what is 3 months? Like 3 months isn't anything. Like three
Yeah,
months goes
totally,
by.
totally.
3 months goes by so fast. Like after 3 months, you won't. It'll feel like a day.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I think that's really important advice. And something that kind of reminded me of talking about the people who complain about it being boring, just in general, like, really doing AJAT is like a huge commitment, and in a lot of ways you have to make sacrifices. I mean, you don't have to think of it that way, but by doing AJAT, there's a lot of things you could be doing that you're choosing to not do, you know? And
Yeah.
so for you, what were your thoughts in that regard? Like, did you ever have feelings about wanting to do other things, but feeling like you shouldn't because they're not Japanese, or on the other hand,
No.
also like what rewards do you feel you you gain from doing this process and putting in all the work?
Yeah. Okay. So like me personally, when I was like going through AJAT hardcore, like I didn't like look back for a second because I mean I was learning so much so fast, and like you get like a rush. It's like euphoria. It's like, wow, I can understand this stuff, and it's like every day you can understand more and more. And um, I guess what came to my advantage was I was kind of like a weird kid, I guess. So I didn't like watch any TV or any movies or listen to any music before I started RTK and started doing Japanese. So it's like I didn't have like any attachment to like things that I like did in the past. Because like when I started AJAT, like a lot of the stuff I did, like all the music and like TV shows and stuff, like that was like my first experience like in Japanese. Like doing it in Japanese was like my first experience pretty much because I didn't really watch like TV. Like I watched TV when I was like a little kid, and then I didn't watch TV for like 7 years like before I started RTK. So it's like, I mean, I guess that's what helped me, but I didn't feel like I was making any sacrifices either. It's like everything was like I had a really concrete goal in the end. It's like at the time I was like I want to go to college in Japan, and like that didn't really materialize for multiple reasons. But it's like I had this goal in my mind, so it's like everything like that I was doing was like I was like the goal was always like in sight, and I was always going towards it. So like at the time, like I never felt like I never looked back once. Like each day I was getting better, and each day was getting more fun because the more you understand, the more fun you can have. So and like learning Japanese itself was fun. Like it wasn't just the reward of like I've learned Japanese, now I can understand this stuff. Like learning Japanese itself was fun. Like learning the kanji was fun. Like was fun. It's like wow, I know 2,000 Chinese characters. Like holy shit. And then it's like I learned all these sentences. Now I can understand stuff. But it's like learning the words themselves. Like that was fun in itself. So it's like the whole process for me was fun. So
Yeah,
and
and I
like
think I always thought that because when I first met you, you had a very different mindset than me. For me, I was really more into thinking of it in terms of grinding and like really just like doing whatever it takes to get good, even if that's not fun. But
yeah.
you, it always seemed like especially when I first met you and you hadn't really gone like started thinking things in terms of target practice or anything like that. It really just seemed like you were literally just doing what you thought was fun, and then you got really good. So I kind of it was that was a really big kind of insight to me was you seem to be living age out exactly how Katz said you should on the website. It was like it's literally all just fun and an adventure, and every single component of it was almost like an end in itself.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel lucky in that sense because definitely like not everyone can experience that. It's like that they can have fun with like everything they're doing in terms of age. So I feel lucky in that sense that I never felt it was boring or tedious. Um, and really like the environment does all the work. If you have a proper age at environment, it's like you don't need to you don't need to try to make yourself do Japanese because, Kat says it's like your environment does all the work. So, if you only have Japanese books and only have Japanese music and only have Japanese TV shows, it's like you're going to do Japanese regardless. So,
Yeah, yeah, totally.
let your environment like let your environment be your willpower.
Yeah, I think that's a really important component of making this all work because we none of us have that much willpower. It's a very limited resource for all of us.
Yeah, and like I'll tell you guys, it's like I started this like 3 weeks ago, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's been working great ever since. What I did was like in terms of like let your environment do the work. It's like I just banned every .com website on like I used a Firefox add-on called Leech Block, and you can choose which like websites to block at what times. So I blocked every .com website like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I can't go on any .com website, and that pretty much bars me out from going from onto like almost any English website. I also banned English Wikipedia because like a lot of times the Japanese articles aren't like as good as the English ones. So it's like you might go there and then it's like, oh, you keep clicking around. It's like, oops, I just wasted like 30 minutes on English Wikipedia. Like stuff like that can happen. So in terms of like letting your environment like do the work for you, it's like I know it sounds extreme and it might not be practical for everyone, but I recommend banning every .com website, and that includes YouTube. But you have Nico Nico instead, and if you want to be a real Japanese like learner, it's like
Yeah,
use the Japanese website.
totally. Awesome, awesome.
Yeah,
Okay. One other thing I wanted to talk about, which is kind of an interesting topic, is having friends along the way, having other nakama,
yeah,
to go on the journey with. Because we already talked a little bit about this, how we had a pretty positive influence on each other. But it's also a pretty slippery slope because we've also had times where we would be talking to each other in English over line and wasting hours and hours just having fun talking to each other, which from a pure AJAT point of view isn't ideal,
yeah.
and so I mean, what are your kind of thoughts about that?
Uh, I mean, it kind of depends. Like, I don't think in a way that having like friends along the way is that important because just in my personal experience, I pretty much got fluent without knowing anyone who else was doing it. Like I didn't meet you until like 2015, so that was like well after the fact. Um, so in my personal mind, I don't think it's a necessity, but it's more like a luxury that it's like it's good to have, but you don't need it. Because I mean, I don't want to be too critical, but a lot of the people on the Discord, uh, they kind of treated it as like a club. Like
Yeah,
they're part of the club, and it's like, yeah, we're having fun in the club, but it's like you can't lose sight of like what you're actually there for. So it's like it can be a downfall if you like end up just talking to them too much about like unrelated stuff.
yeah,
But
totally.
but like
I actually think in hindsight, probably one of the reasons why we did have such a positive relationship was because when we met, we were pretty much both already fluent.
yeah,
I think if we were talking as much as we were before that, it would have been pretty much all negative and not beneficial really to either
yeah.
of us.
So like when you're a noob, like don't worry too much about like having like fellow age adders. Just like focus on getting good. Um, but that's not to say like having like friends like also has a lot of advantages because mostly in terms of like finding out like resources because it's like a lot of people they find out different things on their own and then you can share them. It's like for example, like I didn't know about pretty much anything. Like my age out was so low tech, and it still is low tech because that's how I did it. But it's like before I met Matt, like I didn't know about Kitsuneko for the subtitles. Like so I didn't use any Japanese subtitles at all. Like for pretty much all my age at because I didn't even know like that website existed. And I mean, actually, I think like when I started sentences, they didn't. I don't even know if the website existed when I started. But so yeah, and like or like yore.jp for like the example sentences. I didn't know about that. It's like my all of my AJAC consisted of like Anki and like Goo Dictionary or like Yahoo Dictionary. Like that was it. And like after I met Matt, like I found out like about like this whole world of like convenient tools to like help with Japanese. So Like
Yeah,
that's a really positive thing. It's like if you can share like what resources that you've come across.
I think it's also just important to note that I think there is something to learn from the fact that although those resources are really useful and nice to have, you were doing just fine without them, especially the Japanese subtitles, because I think that's a really mostly negative addiction that other age outers have. And that is kind of just proof that you don't need any of that. Like sometimes people get really caught up in just trying to get the best resources and stuff, and spend time on that rather than actually using the resources they already have. So I think Patrick's just an awesome example of how all that stuff is just a kind of a nice bonus, but not crucial anyway.
Yeah, like you definitely don't want to be become reliant on those things. It's like I saw some people in the Discord and like I think they said stuff like, if I don't have the subtitles, like I don't want to watch it because I can't understand it. But it's like if you use the subtitles, you'll never be able to understand it because you'll never be listening for the Japanese. You'll always just be reading. So it's like the Japanese subtitles are like training wheels. It's like you can't learn to ride a bike with training wheels. It's like you got to keep falling down and it's gonna hurt and you're gonna be upset because like you can't understand anything. But it's like that's how you get better. It's like if you always have the training wheels on, you'll never be able to learn to ride your bike.
Totally, exactly. It's the hard lesson no one wants to hear, but it's just the raw truth about the matter. Okay, so lastly, let's just hear any Japanese media recommendations you have. All your favorite shows, podcasts, anything from over the years.
All right, I'll open up my folder just so I can remember. Um, all right, so like in terms of animes, I really recommend Bomberman Jetters, and like it's really obscure. It's based off like a video game series, except it's like half like really funny gags and then like half like super serious plot. Um, it's like a 10 out of 10 show. I really recommend it. Bomberman Jetters. I don't know if you'll be able to find a torrent, but if you can get hold of it, I definitely recommend. It's 52 episodes, so it's kind of long, but I watched it in 3 days, so it's doable because it's really good. Um,
And you've watched it like hundreds of times, right?
oh yeah, like over my entire age it's like I've watched it hundreds of times. I recommend Danshi Koukousen no Nichijou. So it's like that's a really good anime. It's like the daily lives of high school kids, or I think that's the English title. That's a really good, it's really good like gag anime. Lucky Star. I just watched that recently. It's really good, and it's also good for the noobs because the Japanese is like really easy. So if you're a noob, you should probably check out Lucky Star. Also, it's just pretty fun because there isn't like a story to like that you have to keep paying attention to. You can just enjoy every episode as it is. So that's that. Other animes. I really recommend Golden Boy. It's kind of like a little ecchi, but it's really funny. Evangelion is a really good one too. Haruhi. Oh, also, I recommend the Haruhi books. Like, read all the books because I'm going through the books again right now, and they're really good. So I recommend those. In terms of movies, in terms of dramas, actually, probably every age outer knows about this one, Ikebukuro Escape Park. Probably every age outer knows about that because Kat's talked about it. It's really good, and it's like the way Mako-chan speaks. It's like it really can test your Japanese, like you're listening if you're a noob. So train your listening. Don't use subtitles. Uh, all the Ghibli movies, like pretty much every Ghibli movie is really good. I especially recommend Ocean Waves, or the Japanese title is Umiga Kikoeru. So I recommend that one. That one's really good. There's another drama called Tokyo Love Story. It's like from like 1993 or something. It's really cheesy, but it's really good. I highly recommend it. Um, what else is there? There's this one drama called like Nobutao Produce or something. That one's really good as well. It's about like some like bullied high school girl or something. That one's really good. What else is there? Um, some other animes. Kimagure, Orange Road is a really good one. That's like the ultimate '80s anime. Also,めぞん一刻is another really good '80s anime. Um, I think the Gantz live action movies, those are really good, but kind of really depends on who you are. I don't think Matt likes them that much. Oh, there's a really good anime. It's probably gonna be hard for a lot of people to chew, but it's called Kakyuse. It's based off like a '90s eroge, but like the anime itself is just like a regular like anime love story without like any eroyoso or whatever. But it's really good. I thought it was perfect 10 out of 10. It was really good. Um, I also recommend like a lot of like radio shows. So it's like if you find a voice actor or like a famous person, they probably have a radio show if they're like really huge. So what was his name? Kazuyuki, I think. He has or had a radio show called Radio Misty. There's like over 100 episodes and each one is like an hour long. Those are really good. Ono Daisuke has a radio show shared with someone else that keeps going on. That one's really good. I really recommend radio shows because it's like they're first of all they're entertaining. Second of all, they're it's like real natural Japanese. Nothing is really scripted, and it's a really good way to train your listening. Also, Kiryuin Sho from Golden Bomber, like the band, he had a radio show, and I mean I have a playlist on YouTube. I don't know, maybe Matt can link to it or something. I think Matt saved the playlist too. Um, they're like 80 episodes, and they're all over an hour long, so that stuff's really good. I really recommend radio shows. Um, I guess like in terms of books, I recommend the Haruhi series. Those are really fun. Uh, I recommend reading like Natsume Soseki, like being able to like read more like classical literature. That's really good for your Japanese, and it's something that I'm still working on to this day. Uh, yeah, that's kind of about it.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I'll try to link all these in the description of this post. But yeah, awesome. So this has been amazing. I think there's a lot of really helpful and inspiring information. I can't thank you enough, Patrick.
Yeah.
This was just how I dreamed it would be. It was totally awesome. Cool. So yeah, Patrick has a Twitter account. I'll link that too if you want to follow him. And yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.